Good afternoon. What's today? February 18th, 2026. My name is Paul Smith. We're going live with the 12 to 12. Real quick little photo sesh for my social media team. Sometimes they just want to say, look back at it. All those good things. All right, let's begin. Guys, my name's Paul Smith. I'm a real estate agent, founder, entrepreneur, just general overview, just a decent guy, I hope. And we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today, man. We're going to talk about the recent market stats that have come out. And then, of course, with that, the market stats, there's always a little bit of a deep dive into what's happening within those market stats and really how they're being interpreted kind of within the community, right? Within the public. I got a call from folks over at KXAN yesterday, and they wanted to chat about what was happening in the market. I got Linda Bryan in the house. Linda, I hope you're doing well. Linda's a real estate agent in Florida area. Shout out to Linda. Hope all is well. Man, I don't know if you guys have seen this or not. There's a lot of news about markets and sales and just different, one, just kind of like different strategies, but two, based on these numbers, people are kind of pulling different sales data, and then they're kind of just skewing it in any way they want, right? One of the ones that I saw recently was Redfin said that Austin has 9.5 months supply. And I was like, well, let me dig a little bit deeper into that, right? Because I know for sure we don't have 9 months supply. And then historically, since I've been in real estate, I don't know if we've ever had 9 months supply. And so as I started to look into it and break it down really by price point, that's the important thing here, right? And so I broke it down from homes that are selling in Austin. And let me back up real quickly. In Austin as an overall MSA, right? That's the Travis County, Caldwell County, Hayes County, Williamson County, Llano County. You've got a active, roughly about 13,000 active listings. And then pending wise, I don't know, let me see, what were the actual numbers here? We had 13,257 active listings and 4,001 pending listings. This is as of 11 o'clock yesterday, which meant that we have 3.3 months supply, which is true. That means that we have 100 days worth of inventory. Now, that doesn't mean that the average house sells in 100 days. That just means if we don't add any more inventory, we will take 3.3 months or 100 days to exhaust our inventory. What they're leaving off here is one, that's the overall MSA. But then if you break it down by price point, let's go from 0 to 500,000, which I count as the first time home buyer market. We've got 7,709 active and 2,659 pending. Now that's the bulk, by the way. That's over half of our listings is in that sub 500 category there, which means that we're at 2.9 months supply in 87 days on market. Now, what we do know is that a market that has 6 months worth of supply is a equilibrium market, right? So there's no difference there. It's a buyer-seller's market. If everything is an arm's length transaction, the thought process is that the sales price would just stay kind of status quo. And so the idea is then all of a sudden, if you have less than 6 months supply in a healthy market that doesn't have extenuating circumstances, maybe a pandemic, maybe a depression, maybe a recession, assuming that it's all supply and demand based, less than 6 months, typically you will have some level of price appreciation over time. Having said that, above 6 months, you'll start to see a little bit of a price depreciation over time. And so that's why it's very important, I think, to not just look at these numbers and be like, okay, what are we looking at here? It's like really kind of jump in and on its face, what are these numbers? And what do they really mean, right? And so I think that it's reckless and irresponsible to just take something out of context and be like, oh, Austin has 9.5 months supply. And you know what? They're absolutely right. We do have 9.5 months supply of homes listed over $2 million. So the luxury market is currently at about 9 months, 9.5 months. There's 615 units listed or homes listed above 2 million, and there's 66 sold, which is literally 9.3 months or 279 days. And again, that doesn't mean that it's going to take you 279 days to sell a home. That just means that if we don't add any more inventory, that's where this would be going. And also looking at the market stats, the average home right now being listed is selling at 91.1% of list price. So what does that tell me at the end of the day? One, it tells me that homes that are overpriced tend to sit on the market more. I think that's one thing that we can all agree on, is that there's nobody more educated right now than the buyer that has gone and seen all of the inventory, because the sense of urgency, again, in certain price points is not nearly there as much as it used to be, right? You don't have that sense of urgency where I walk in and put an offer in, or if I, before I go see it, I put an offer in. And that, by the way, that is all going to be predicated on price point. So even me just saying that statement doesn't necessarily mean it's true if, as a seller, you price your property in a way where you make it advantageous to get multiple offers, right? At the end of the day, when it comes to real estate, we're talking about leverage. I've done a piece on leverage in the past. When we're talking about leverage as a buyer and seller, typically the longer a home sits on the market with no offers, the more leverage that a buyer is going to have. Now, conversely, if a home just hit the market, it's priced very well, it's staged appropriately, it's marketed appropriately, there's a good chance that you're going to get multiple offers. Because I will tell you one thing about the Austin market is there are people looking to buy. You just need to know how to get your property ready or your real estate ready. So that way there, when it comes time to put it on the market, it's the most appealing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that coming on at the highest price means it's going to net you the highest offer. A lot of times you could say, look, if we know that in a certain marketplace, there's 10 active and there's 5 pending, guess what? That means there's 2 months supply. That is an extreme seller's market. What I would want to do there is find out what the actual sold comps are. I don't really look at active comps. The only reason why I would look at active comps is if I'm looking at the sold comps and the active comps are below that, my whole goal is you have to be the best house for the best price to sell. Bar none. That's always the case. Buyers are going to be very educated in this situation. And so what you want to do is make sure that you are putting your best foot forward. And big part of that is pricing. Fortunately for me, currently, my list to sale ratio right now is at 98%. What does that mean? That means that, one, my sellers trust me in my ability to price property, right? So that way there, I can look at what the market is, say, look, I know how much this home is going to sell for. In a lot of the cases, it's because it's development deals in which that I have already sold multiple of this type of a product in a neighborhood, which kind of then, that's kind of cheating a little bit at that point, right? Because I'm literally selling the same thing over and over again. That is a lot easier to price than if I'm going into, say, Tarrytown, Clarksville, Westlake. The homes there, they're going to be different things that come as far as square footage, the type of finish out, right? The type of floor plan, what's around the home. These are all things that are extenuating circumstances that are going to dictate essentially how much you get for your home. So again, I think it's very, very, very reckless for a company like Redfin to say that there's 9.5 months supply at the end of the day. Guys, again, this is Paul Smith. You're tuning into the 12 at 12. If you have any questions about real estate or anything business related or whatnot, please let me know. Man, one of the things today, let's say, what's up, Clarissa, first and foremost, does price sometimes go up during development later versus going in early at a lower price? Yeah, sometimes that is the case, right? Like overall, assuming that over the course of, let's say, 5 years, the development's going to happen, over that time, land tends to appreciate, right? And so if you think about real estate, land appreciates and sticks and bricks depreciate, right? Every time you shut a door, eventually you're going to have to replace that door, right? And so that's the whole thing where sticks and bricks depreciate, but land appreciates. Now, the caveat to that is if there's extenuating circumstances, like let's say you've got land and all of a sudden now there's a highway right behind you. That is going to be a situation where that could be a detriment to your real estate. And that's something where that could certainly hurt your values. We've had some conversations about that in the past, about some different things moving into the, Southeast Austin over off of Altorf area, right? That's something that in theory could be an environment change that could hurt your real estate. But overall, if you're able to put a down payment on a piece of property and then it gets built out over the next year, assuming all of the matrix within the market are correct, I'm going to assume that you're going to step in with some level of equity. And that is called equitable title, right? We've had some conversations on that as well. Let's see, going over the market stats. Median price in Austin is $445,000. That's down 6.3% from last year. Closed sales, and this is basically the thing with market stats, guys, is they're from January, right? So it's technically trailing behind. And then the closed sales are down 12.4%. However, the months of inventory down 2 months. So it went from 5.9 months last year to 3.9 months, which means that actually the market's tightening because the amount of pendings is up 11%, right? The amount of pendings was 1,044. So again, you just looking at that, you're like, man, the Austin market's crumbling. It's like, let's think about what was happening last year at this time, right? There was an election that happened in November. Prior to the election, there was a lot of uncertainty in the market because people didn't necessarily know who was going to win. Well, once President Trump won, there was overall kind of an elation at first of, oh my gosh, that's going to be great for the economy. So a bunch of people started buying homes in December timeframe, and those homes typically closed in January, right? So you're seeing kind of an artificial pump that happened last year based on that. Whereas this year, and then of course the market kind of took a little bit of ride up and down because it's like, are we going to have tariffs? Are we not going to have tariffs? I don't know what's going on in crypto. What's not going on in crypto? Big, beautiful bill. I don't know what's beautiful about the bill. Who knows, right? At the end of the day, it was all things that were uncertainty. And unfortunately, with uncertainty, a lot of times it's not great for real estate. It's great for buying real estate. If you know that typically over time, the matrix in the real estate market are going to be positive job growth, positive migration of people. Those are two things that will lead to positive real estate prices at the end of the day. Oh, shout out to Denise Smith. Apparently she's coming down with cold, blaming it on me, by the way, guys. Those are out there. Does anybody else remember you just always get blamed for colds and whatnot? Here we are. So think about that, right? What was happening last December versus this December? This December, right? Things kind of settled down a little bit, and we knew, interest rates had, that's fair. She can do no wrong in my eyes as well. Those that don't know, Clarissa just said Denise can do no wrong in my eyes, and fair enough. Same. If you think about last December, this December, there was a lot of pent up demand. Denise says, hi there. Only time for a few questions today. Very busy. Okay, go ahead and fire off. She's hilarious. Looking at median price again from peak to where it is now, median price at 445,000. At the top of it, the median price was 550,000. And one of the things that the newscaster said yesterday is the Austin market cooling. And that's an interesting way to say that. And I tried to stop her right there. And I said, look, cooling, I say it's already cooled. Now, why would I say that? We're looking at pending numbers. We're looking at buyers actively in the market today. And those numbers are up 11% from last year. Also last year in January, as Trump was getting, the inauguration was coming in, he starts talking about tariffs and implying all these tariffs. And he has this really dope chart about how people are getting hit with 20%, 25%, whatever it is. That started to cause uncertainty in the market. And what that did is that caused people to kind of pull out of the market a little bit. I think that 2026 is going to be the year where you start to see Austin return back to the cyclical market that it has always been, in which case where you have typically January ends up being the slowest month of the year. February it builds up, March is building up, April, May, June, gangbusters. And then it's hot as hell, right? People go on vacation, July, August, September, Labor Day picks up a little bit. And then you go into October, November, December tends to be pretty busy because people are trying to close by the end of the year. And that's the Austin cycle across the board. And then of course, again, that's all different and different price points. And guys, has anybody, let me know if you guys have heard of this or not, but has anybody heard of what's called a K-shaped recovery? Right? A lot of times you have different recoveries where you kind of like say hockey stick growth or like some sort of an S recovery. In this case, it's called a K-shaped recovery. And if you think about a K, it kind of goes up and down, right? K's kind of go like this. And so we're talking about the top end of the market and the bottom end of the market. And by that, I'm talking about by price point. And although there's significantly more buyers that can afford homes, let's say sub $1 million, than there are above $1 million. But if you look at people that are buying homes above $1 million, what's happening with their stock portfolio? S&P is at all-time highs right now. Unfortunately, folks that don't have expendable cash to invest, milk, also all-time high, beef, all-time high. They're getting affected quite unfortunately, significantly more on a lot of the things that are happening within the economy right now than those that are high income earners. If you look at the way that the Big Beautiful Bill is set up, it's really set up to help out those that are investing, those that hold assets. And so if you're thinking to yourself, like, man, I'm really getting the piss beat out of me right now, I think what you need to do is start to think about that question of how can I start to buy assets? How can I control assets? And what does that mean for me? How can I build wealth? How do I end up in the top of the K, not the bottom of the K? We can talk about that anytime you want. Okay, let's do it. Because I think ultimately this is about the conversations of how do we start to change the way that we think fundamentally about, one, maybe ourselves, two, about money, investment, and how do we enter into that top part of the K where we're investing. And this isn't something where I want to talk about this over the next 6 months or a year. This is a lifetime of wealth. And that's really the conversations that we need to start having here. See what else is going on here, guys. Again, this is Paul Smith tuning into the 12 at 12. I think one of the most exciting things that I've seen this week is shout out to Bartlett's for taking over the Threadgill section. Those that don't know, Bartlett's is one of the dopest restaurants up off of Anderson and Burnett area. And it's a great restaurant. I'm super excited about this. Probably one of the dopest lunch spots in town. It used to be Houston's back in the day. They have the most amazing French dip. Those that have gone with me also know that I love to get a side of ribs for the table. It's just phenomenal. They've actually partnered with MML, which, you know, MML does Clark's, Perla's, Pecan Street, Howard, Swedish Hill. Those are just hitting home runs, by the way. So shout out to Larry for hitting another one out the park. I know that's going to be great there. Those that don't know about the Threadgill site, that site is actually owned by a family that has owned that property since the early 1900s. And they do what's called a 99-year ground lease. Yeah, Denise says it. It's true. Spinach artichoke dip is fire. It's so, so good. In the great words of Max, he would say that's tough. Tough. That's the word the kids are saying, tough now. Anybody else kids saying tough out there? Tough. Like tough used to be like, oh, this is hard. Now tough is like, that's dope. Yeah. Who knew? Didn't even realize it. That's tough. In the great words of Max, that's tough. Super excited about that. That is probably one of the most exciting additions to the downtown market, in my opinion, probably ever. Those that know, you know, Threadgill's closed down in 2018, and it is right off of East Riverside, kind of South First, in that area. Super cool. Oh, we got Chino Chase in the house. Oh, tough. Denise says tough with 2 F's. That's why I say thick with 2 C's. Just kidding. Oh, Chino chasing us. Chino, man, where are you in the world right now? Are you in Austin? Chino, those that don't know, Chino is I would say at this point, like world-renowned videographer. Sometimes I'll be hanging out with Chino and people come up to him like that scene from Coming to America, where he's like, it's the Prince of Zamunda, and he's like taking a photo, and I'm like, Chino, what the fuck is going on here, man? It's so great. Denise said, oh boy, she did not like the thick with 2 C's comment. Moving along here. Let's see. ABJ talks about one of the housing market's critical gaps is shrinking. Home buyers need to earn over. Okay, so that's great. So one of the things that's shrinking right now, and what they're talking about, is affordability, right? To say that the home prices are shrinking, as well as basically the home price comparatively to income is starting to shrink, which is good. That means that things are more affordable. There you go. Chino says we're in Stockholm, Sweden today. Perfect. That absolutely tracks, man. Enjoy. Give Quali my love. Give him a hug. Tell him I said, what's up, man? One of the things I think is interesting is, and this is posted on ABJ right now, as Austin's office pipeline dries up, occupancy rates have almost nowhere to go but up. And basically what they're saying is that as the Austin market, as the companies that are looking to rent office space, as that starts to dry up, that means that occupancy is going to dry up. And so it means that, again, this all comes down to supply and demand. Right? We're talking about, at first, we started this out with Redfin saying that we have 9.5 months supply. This is another sub part of the market, right? We have different asset classes in real estate. We have residential, we have commercial. You can even break it down from there. Is to say we have commercial office, we have commercial warehouse, there's retail, there's flex space, there's land, right? There's a bunch of different things and different ways that you can hold and make money in real estate. And one of the things right now that you're seeing is the office market is certainly a lagging indicator right now. Maybe we got Ashton, mountain bike shredder. Ashton, hope you're doing well, man. I know your dad runs the account. Would love to get you guys into Austin sometime to do some riding with Max. Hope all's well. They're tuning in from Bentonville, so shout out. Oh man, we got Ray in the house, Crime by Design. Ray, dude, I had a great time with you at Super Bowl, bro. Thanks for hanging out, guys. What we're talking about is basically occupancy rates in Austin, which sounds like a big snooze at the end of the day because it kind of is. But it's part of the overall bigger ecosystem, which is the Austin market, right? And again, I always say markets are going to market. And so supply and demand, I always say economics 101, we're talking about how right now you're going to see office inventory start to go up. What does that mean? Well, that means that prices are going to come down. Not a bad thing, right? Prices have to come down before they can go back up. You have to have some sort of a recovery before going back up. And so it was, yeah, man, it was a blast, dude. It was great to spend some great time with you and Don, by the way, man. Shout out to y'all. It's one of those things where you have to have that, right? And so what'll happen is it'll get to the point as prices come down, it'll get to the point where people are going to be really interested to move back into those buildings. And then all of a sudden you start to see occupancy and you start to see vacancy start to go down. Again, if you have more tenants that are looking to come in and take office space, that means that prices are going to go up. And even within the Austin market, there's different subsects. The downtown market in general, specifically when you have some large tenants, some large A-list tenants here, right? We've got Indeed Tower, you've got Facebook, you've got Google has 2 buildings, Facebook has 2 buildings. Well, Google and Facebook, they're moving their people into their buildings now, which is great. Now they've also tried to sublease a lot of it. So you have the Austin downtown market when it comes to office space. And then the second most dense area for office space in Austin is going to be the Domain, in the Domain area, right? So Indeed's taking a bunch up there. You have AWS there. One of the bigger tracks that people are not necessarily talking about right now is the 3M site over off of 620 and 2222. I've heard some rumblings that there's a large data center company going in there to go ahead and take that over because the amount of power and also the amount of internet capability that they have, bandwidth, is going to be big for that site. So I think that's going to be really cool. So it won't take long on some of these large buildings to have some of the bigger office players move back into town. And I also think right now we kind of in that frothy area when it comes to unemployment, if you think about it, right? We're kind of getting to that point where unemployment is starting to creep up a little bit. And as unemployment creeps up, you're going to start to see employers start to have a little bit more of a power shift. With employment numbers being super low, your employees start to become extremely entitled. They're like, you know what? I want to work at home. I'm not coming to the office anymore. Well, that's all well and good until you don't have a job. And then if you don't have a job, you're like, you know what? I got to pay my rent. I got to pay my mortgage, got to feed my family. I'll come into the office. And so as you start to see unemployment start to tick up, you will start to see that sway back to employers having, and I understand this is probably extremely controversial because a lot of my friends are not business owners. A lot of them are employees. And so they're going to be like, all WTF. But at the end of the day, all things go back and forth, right? All things, there's kind of a dance with economies. There's kind of a dance with everything within the world. And you can always kind of take a step back and be like, okay, where is the Austin market as far as the dance goes, right? And there's a time where, I always think about, if anybody ever been to the, we got Carly in the house. My brother CK's in here, by the way. Those that don't know, go hit up Wu Chow, Swift's Attic, partners in Toshikan. Guy's got his hands in a lot of things. Hope Gallery. Hopefully we're working on something right now with over South by at the Hope Gallery in Questlove. We'll see if it happens, but that'd be dope. Be a lot of fun. Who knows? Just putting it out there right now. Putting it in the universe. I'm getting to wrap it up soon later. If you think about it, those that have gone to carnivals, right? You have the pirate ship, right, where it goes up and it goes down and everything else. And we have just witnessed an up and down in a 4-year cycle because of the pandemic and what I'm calling the post-pandemic hangover. At the end of the day, we've had that up and we've had that down. And now it's kind of like we're at the middle and people are getting on the ride, getting off the ride. And there's a lot more kind of a sense of like, we know what's going to happen going forward. And so if you know what's going to happen, that means that people are confident. And when people are confident, they're going to push their chips in. That's great. That doesn't necessarily mean they timed the bottom. The bottom may have happened a few months ago. But they're still knowing, at least, that they're putting their chips in with a lot of gain that could potentially happen going forward. And that's something that I think we're seeing in the Austin market for sure. Still a lot of companies moving here. We've done a bunch of different, we've done a lot of things to talk about the amount of companies moving to Austin. If you guys want to learn more about that, please feel free. If you guys want to jump on, I do a weekly newsletter. I think for YouTube, they call it like and subscribe. Is that right? I never know. I just watch Max doing it. That was tough. Shout out. We got Ben there. Sold that. Ben, hope all's well. Ben and I are building a bunch of office warehouse flex space out in Dripping Springs. Another asset class, by the way, that I think is the future. And there's an opportunity right now to really make some money in that asset class. Jenny's in the house. Man, Jenny, I hope you're well. Let's see next time you get to Austin, by the way. Guys, you know what? That's going to do it for me for the 12 at 12. If you guys have any questions about real estate, please feel free to hit me up. Those on X, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all that fun stuff. Thank you guys for tuning in. Y'all be good.